So, Kathy Taylor is an award-winning entrepreneur who empowers women to acknowledge and overcome perfectionism. Really? People pleasing. We don't do that. And comparison, and become who they are created to be. Through workshops, coaching, and retreats, Kathy and her herd empowers clients to see things from a different perspective for accelerated growth and transformation. She is a TEDx speaker and co-author of Dare to Be Different, Dare to Be a Difference Maker and creator of Peace, a coloring journal for adults. Today, Kathy will be talking to you about the art of receiving.
Thank you very much. Let me make sure this is going to stay on. All right, awesome. Thank you all for being here on a Saturday. I know it might be kind of early for some. I usually get up pretty early anyway, but it is Saturday, so I know hopefully some of y'all take the opportunity to sleep in on the occasional Saturday. But the thing that keeps me awake if I'm driving in a car and I'm getting kind of sleepy because I've been driving and then, I'm almost to Amarillo, is to think. It's not turning the radio up because I can still fall asleep even if I'm singing a song. It's not having the windows open, it's really thinking. So if I can just sort of have a problem to solve, it keeps me awake. So I'm hoping that this morning I'm going to ask y'all to think a little bit. Hopefully, since you'll be thinking about yourselves, the topic you know very well and it won't be very challenging, but it'll kind of boost you up a little bit. So thinking is a great thing if I'm going this way with it and I'm solving something. But a lot of times my thinking can just kind of run away with me. And then I get into that whole negative stuff about, oh no, I forgot to do this. And this morning, in fact, I'm getting ready to come here in my car. It's 7:05. I have to put something in the back, so I open the back up. I can't do it, so I unlock the car, open up the back, throw the keys in the car, lock it, and all of my stuff and everything I need for today is locked in the car. And I just thought, okay, well, what does this have to do with receiving? And I thought, I am not going to receive that. But my mind was easily just going downward spiral. And into that whole thing of, well, my table's not going to look perfect, and nobody's going to like what I have to say, because who knows if I'm going to even remember it. And well, is it going to even be any good? All that comparison and people pleasing and things like that. So I'm hoping, can I have a show of hands if anybody besides me is a people pleaser, a perfectionist, or a comparison person? Okay, phew. All right, wait, hang on, put your hands back up again, because I want everybody to look around the room. I don't think there's a hand that's not raised. Okay, awesome. So, all right, glad I'm not alone. It's not a fun place to be when we're there, and I kind of just think, well, how do we get in these places? Because at the root, all of these things really have to do, they're about control. Anybody control freak? Been called one, once or twice maybe. And a lot of that has to do with because we want to grab onto something. And this really, to me, starts with what have we received? Because really, everything that you are and everything you have is something that you have received. So what I mean by that is, even you can take it literally. Before you're even conceived, right, the sperm has to receive, or the egg has to receive the sperm, right? The first thing that you receive when you are born is you go, right before you let out that wailing cry, but you have to breathe in before you can breathe out. And even the first thing your parents give you is a name. They might have even given you that before you were born. So being able to receive and receive well is really important, but a lot of times we don't do that very well. And so I really feel like I'm on a mission to help us to be better receivers. And that's from a point of view of not just receiving compliments, because a lot of times we don't do that very well. We can say, oh, hey, great hat. And you go, oh yeah, well, or a great dress. Oh look, I got it on sale at Ross for $20. This old thing, I mean, we don't even receive compliments well, ladies, right? So these aren't necessarily steps up here that I'm going to go through, but these are sort of my 4 R's of receiving well, and I'll go into them a little bit more. But this is what they are: is to recognize, review, release, and then replace. So we've all heard this: it's better to give than to receive. And I'm not up here at all to dispute this. I agree with this 100%. But to me, it kind of starts with a simple math problem. Because here's where my perfectionist mind takes it. If it's better to give, it's worse to receive. Meaning it's good to give, it's bad to receive. And I think especially our culture, and as women, we already are naturally receivers, right? I mean, we're the ones who receive, we're the intuition people. We take this into this, it just gets all out of balance, that we give. But if we give, what are we really giving if we haven't received first? Because just like that breath that you take when you first are born, you have to receive first. This is that downward spiral I was talking about. And there we go. So what kind of things have you received? Good things and bad things. And maybe you haven't received some good things that you should have received. And we'll be talking about those a little bit today. So some of the things that are good that you maybe have received. Hopefully you've received some love from your parents. You've received love from friends. And so then when you receive those things, then you can give those things. How many of you are willing to just sort of drop everything when a good friend calls and says, I need some help? A lot of us. Yeah, we've all done it. But how comfortable do you feel calling someone to ask for their help? Not so much. So again, we're good givers, not such good receivers. And then there probably are some things that you've received that you really shouldn't have received. And I'll go into those a little bit in a minute. But you really can only give what you have received. You might have heard before, hurt people, free people. And I like to say, too, that empowered women empower women. So you can only give what you have received first. So this is about sort of taking inventory of that and seeing what have you received. All right, so here's my receiving first is $20. If I want to give you, Karen, $20, I have to have $20, right? I have to have received it from either a friend gave it to me. Maybe I even found it lying on the ground. Maybe I've done, maybe it's an exchange of services for my business. But I have to have received that $20 in order to give it to somebody. Because if I don't, if I go around and I think, well, I don't have any 20s, so I'll just make a few, I'm going to get in some big trouble. And so are you. And those are just, they're counterfeits. And they are bad, and they're bad for us. So these are a few of the counterfeits that I know I've heard in my life, and maybe they sound a little bit familiar to you. So the first one there, just who do you think you are, young lady? You might have even said this yourself. I've probably said it. I know it was said to me. And so the message there isn't just as straightforward as that, because the one that I received, I think the one that we really all receive is, well, who do you think you are? You're totally not good enough for that. Who do you think you are giving a TED Talk? Who do you think you are writing a book? Who do you think you are owning your own business and trying to sell to people? Or, I can't believe you did that. I thought you were smarter than that. Yeah? Jessica's laughing. What's the message there? Well, we get the message, I'm stupid, or I'm not good at that, whatever that is. One of my personal favorites is, and because my mom said this all the time growing up, and I wholeheartedly believe if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Because you want to do things with excellence. But again, my perfectionist, people-pleasing mindset goes, well, it translates it to, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing perfectly the first time, and I have to have everything laid out, and no one's going to like it anyway, so I'm never mind. Right? And so we just end up never launching. And then there's the comparison about, well, why can't you be more like fill in the blank? Your sister, your friend down the street, your mother, your father. And that just means, again, the message that I receive from that is, well, if I were more like them, I would be loved more. I'd be more accepted, and I'd be more successful. So those are some counterfeit 20s. Does anybody in here ever heard anything like that, receive some counterfeit 20s? So we're going to work on that a little bit today. Because this really isn't about blaming anybody. I'm not trying to blame anybody's parents, because we're old enough now that we should be beyond that and taking responsibility for what we've continued to believe. But this is about really, like I said, taking inventory of your thoughts and deciding which ones you need to keep and which ones you need to let go of. So I'm going to share a story about when I was in the 8th grade, and I thought for years, I didn't even think about this. And then when I started my business, it kind of roared its ugly head, and I thought I was over that. So in the 8th grade, I finally had a friend who was, well, here, let me go over here to this, because middle school is so great. So this is me when I'm little. So most of you, maybe some of you in this room, I don't know a lot of you, but many of you know that I am a horse lover to my core. I think there's just horse-loving DNA out there, and you either have it or you don't. And I was a mutant in my family, I guess, because I was the only one that had that horse-loving DNA. And so nobody really got it. While everybody else was playing with Barbies, I was playing with Breyer horse models and trying to collect every one that I possibly could. And, people would skip to the lunchroom, and I would canter and snort and whinny as I went. Yeah, even probably in middle school. Well, maybe not, but. So by the time I got to 8th grade, finally, there was a friend who started taking riding lessons at the same barn that I rode at. And I was so excited because I thought, awesome, someone else is going to be horse crazy like me, and I won't be the only one. So my dad would drop me off at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning and at the barn and pick me up at 6 o'clock at night. So I got to spend the whole day there. And it was a whole other group of friends and everything. And but my friend Tara, she just went to my school. She was only really allowed to come for her one hour lesson and stayed for a little before or after. So I had a lot of things that I wanted to talk to her about that I couldn't talk to her about except at school. So I remember one Monday, I thought there's a lot to talk to her about. And I went out to sit at my lunch spot with all my friends under the tree, walking out with my lunch tray. And I'm walking out all excited to talk to Tara. And then I hear somebody say, oh gosh, here comes Kathy. Now all we're going to hear about is those stupid horses. And even now, it kind of makes my heart thump to think about it, because it was I just felt like I was punched in the gut. I tried to hold the tears back, because I knew that if I started to say anything, I was just they were gonna never stop. So I just sat down like I didn't hear anything and just pretended like, everything's normal, sit down, be quiet. But I remember to this day making a promise to myself that I will never talk about horses again. And so the message that I received then really very loud and very clearly was, hey, if you want to be our friends, you better not talk about horses. And so I was just like, okay. And I just got really small and really little and kind of hid myself and my true passion and my true love for a long, long time. And even when I started my business Herdwise, where I actually use horses and I have to talk about them, I was keenly aware that I did not want my name, Kathy Taylor, to be, I didn't want it to be like Taylor Consulting or anything like that. So, that was sort of way too out there, way too look at me, way too able to receive. Because what happened is I wasn't able to give. And when you're in a service business, when you're an entrepreneur, that's what you're doing is you're serving people, which is giving. But since all I had received, from that perspective anyway, was emptiness, that's really the place I was giving from, was from this place of emptiness, not from a place of fullness and love. And that's just no way to build a business, no way to serve people. So I had to change the way that I was thinking about some things. And it was interesting, though, even when I would go to networking events and I'd be talking to somebody about the horses, still in the back of my mind, I was still hearing, oh, they're just waiting for me to stop talking about those stupid horses. So I kind of find it ironic that it was my love of horses that got me into this mess, and now it's this love of horses that's bringing me out of it. So I'm going to go through these little, my 4 R's now. So the first one is to recognize. So I want you to really recognize that there are messages that you have received that maybe you're better off not having received them. Which ones are good? Which ones are bad? And just to take note of those. Sometimes when we're, when we're little especially, we don't realize that we have a choice of whether or not to receive those messages. Like I said earlier, I said I chose not to receive all that nastiness this morning, my bad attitude. I was like, not going to receive it. But we don't realize that we have that choice. So a lot of times we put things on ourselves, and we've grown up with it, and it's become so much a part of us that we just think, well, that's just who I am. That's how I am. And it might not be. So I kind of equate it to that comfy old sweater that you have in the bottom drawer of your dresser, that when you just kind of feel, not so great, and maybe it's kind of cloudy outside, and you just want to hide, that's what you go put that on because it makes you feel comfortable and protected and cozy and all that sort of stuff. But you would never wear it out in public because it is dog ugly. And that's just really a version of hiding and playing small. So I want to encourage you to get rid of that sweater. Number 2 is to review. And by this I mean really take that inventory about which one is good and which one is bad. Go through your life, create a journal of different thoughts that you think and ways that you think. You might find things that you think of that you're not even aware of. You could even, when you're going through there, you're thinking, like something happens and you're going, why did I say that or why did I do that? Well, you can kind of play back in your mind, where did that come from? What's the source of that? And really take time to review that. Sometimes you're a little bit too close to the problem to see it. Kind of like if you're trying to, well, we all kind of read like this now, don't we? So maybe you need to get a little further away from the problem. Like I just thought that 8th grade problem was gone, but it really wasn't until I could get further away and really look at it for what it was. 3 is release. And again, just kind of like that sweater, a lot of times we don't feel like we really have permission to let go of some things that we feel are so much a part of us and other people think are part of us, but maybe we'd really be better off without it. So I want to give you permission right now, today, to just let go of some things. It might be a process. Forgiveness definitely might be in there. And there was a time several years ago now that I really had to let something go. My dad was going through a really hard time, and my brother and sister and I had done everything we could possibly think of to help him, but he was unable or unwilling, I'm not sure which, to receive our help. So at the time, I was living in North Carolina, and I was driving the 10-hour drive back from Florida. My 2 kids were in the back seat, and they were laughing and giggling back there, having a good time. But I was up front just sobbing silently. I mean, we'd tried everything. We'd tried money. We'd tried ideas. We were at our wits' end, completely out of ideas and resources and everything. And now that I think about this, I'm like, I don't remember if the backpack that I lifted up was real or not. but it was like, reaching over into the passenger seat and lifting up this backpack, and it weighed a ton because it was full of all the burdens that I was carrying, that, I'm a failure as a daughter if my dad's not successful. And, I was hopeless, and there was just despair in there. And, I just remember lifting it up as I'm driving along going, okay, God, I've got nothing left. Yours. It's all yours. And I set it back down again, imaginary or real, I don't even remember. And all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, I feel lighter inside. And this had never happened to me before. Is this real? So I checked back in with myself, a couple hours later, and it was still there, so that was good. And the next day and a few days later, a few weeks later, still felt lighter. It's like, cool, I really did let that go. So again, it might be a process. You might be hanging on to something really tight, and you have to kind of let go of it one finger at a time before you just let something go. And the forgiveness part, it might be someone else, but can I suggest that you also might need to forgive yourself? Because if you can't receive grace for yourself, you can't give grace very well to other people. And the last one is to replace. So we're going to do a little experiential exercise with replace. You guys all have rocks on your table, little stones. And so those are going to be, I want you to imagine that those are seeds. And we're going to plant those seeds today. Everybody got their stone? And you know what it says. You've read it, right? Okay. So first I want you to kind of, in order to plant a seed, we've got to prepare the soil. So we're going to plant this in our heart. So I want you to just kind of prepare, think about what good soil is. It's like this soil, right? It's dark, it's rich, lots of organic materials in it, organic nutrients. It's kind of light and fluffy. It's got some air running through it. So just think about that for a minute. All right, so now what I want you to do is everybody just, if your legs are crossed, uncross them. And put your feet on the floor. This is the participation part. So put your feet on the floor and just take a deep breath in. You might want to close your eyes. I would suggest closing your eyes. Close your eyes and just take a deep breath in. And as you take this deep breath in, I want you to make sure that that breath is going all the way down to the bottom of your lungs. In, receiving, and out is giving. And even your lungs are expanding front to back and side to side. If there's any tension in your shoulders, let that go. Maybe you hold your tension in your jaw or your mouth or around your eyes. So as you're taking these deep breaths, you might even notice that your stomach's getting a little soft. And that's good. That means you're breathing all the way into your diaphragm instead of just into your shoulders. Take that breath. And now I want you to imagine that your heart is opening up. Opening wide, keeping open. And then I want you to say to yourself, I am, and then fill in the blank with whatever your word is. And say it a few times. And as you're saying it, I want you to feel your heart closing in around that truth. Because that's what that is. If you're feeling some resistance, that's okay. Just know that you're doing the best you can. Trying harder is not the answer. It's just about receiving from a place of rest. And when you feel like that seed is in there, you can kind of tamp down the soil if you want to. If it helps you to kind of put your hand on your heart, you can do that. kind of tamp the soil down. Remember to keep breathing. And keep saying to yourself, I am fearless. I am cherished. I am creative. All right, so when you feel like you've done that and you've received well, you can open your eyes. Take maybe one more deep, big breath. Hoping that's been a good way for you guys to start off this morning so that you can receive well from the rest of our speakers. And I hope that that was meaningful to you, because that really is the truth. All those things that are written on those stones are things that God says about you. And that's the most important thing for you to receive. When you're not able to receive things like this, when you are able to receive things like this, that's a good thing. You can become that created you, the more you that you are, the more permission you actually give to other people to become who they were created to be. That strong and courageous and fearless person. I'm over there at the corner table. I'm kind of at the end of the road, but I promise the walk will be worth it. I've got some offers and some interesting other ways for you to learn to receive well and to practice receiving well. Yeah, we already selected a seed. But it's important to continue this practice of receiving, because there's probably more than one thing that you need to get rid of, you need to release, that you could replace with something else, a lie to release to replace with a truth. Because when we plant things like we just planted today, when we plant beauty and courage and generosity or strength and power, then that's what grows, because you can only grow whatever seed you planted. And when you grow that, that's what you harvest, and then you can give it. And I know you all want to be good givers, but we need to be able to receive first, because that's the importance of it, is to receive well first. It's like the foundation. It's like receiving is the foundation for your giving. So receiving well. Thank you very much today for participating in my experiential idea, and I hope you have a great rest of the conference.